All right, I'm here at the Venetian with Keith Townsend of the CTO Advisor. Keith, hey, thanks for taking the time. I want to take a few minutes and talk about the conference, talk about the AWS reInvent conference. Let's talk about the Keynote too, and I wanted to get your first take on that.
So, one, Adam's first Keynote, which was surprisingly a lot like Andy Jassy. It wasn't a huge departure from Andy. So fit and finish, AWS reInvent. They didn't have an in-person one last year, and this year didn't skip a beat. From a technology perspective, well, before we even get into technology, I love that AWS took a victory lap.
I saw that.
Like the past 15 years.
Let's talk about 15 years, what we've been able to do.
How we're outrunning the competition, 475 different EC2 instance sizes, just how much bigger AWS is from a services perspective than the closest competition. Surprisingly, the two things that caught my interest, one was from the partner keynote the day before, which was the ability for data partners to bend their data APIs to AWS so that, let's say you're a TIPCO and you're a TIPCO customer, now you can use TIPCO calls directly in your AWS API calls to get data. So that's, in theory, what was interesting from the partner session. Then from the keynote itself, 5G in a box.
5G, that was odd to me.
That was odd, because both of us know wireless is hard.
It is.
And wireless at the edge as a service is really an interesting thing, and I'm a little bit unclear on how AWS is going to charge on that, because they're not doing a per device model. They're going to ship you all the equipment, send you the SIM cards, and you're just up there, you build it up and running, and it connects to their back-end control plane, and they manage it. Really interesting. And then the other thing is that
and also, where do companies like AT&T and Verizon fit into this too? I'm sure they have something to say.
Because they want to sell private 5G.
Yeah.
This is obviously part of their long-term edge strategy.
And if you're an enterprise that's looking to build out a 5G network, who are you going to? Are you going to Amazon, or are you going to
AT&T or Verizon? Again, good questions. And I think a lot of detail will run into, like, are they using Open RAN versus proprietary Ericsson or technologies, etc. Then the other thing is Amazon keeps trying to attack the mainframe. Remember back in 2016 at reInvent, they made a big announcement about a cloud-based mainframe service that obviously didn't get a lot of traction. This year they attacked it again, saying that they're reducing the speed to migration by 2/3, so 2/3 less time to migrate the COBOL code into the public cloud, but the mainframe has been a resistant on-premises workload that refuses to go to the cloud.
The one thing that I thought was a market shift from Jassy to the new CEO is they're talking more about outcomes first and foremost. So it wasn't a run-through of every technology upgrade and new instance type that has been announced and every technology that is new, but rather they're starting with, here's what we're able to do, here's what we're starting to do, and then getting into, here are the technologies that we happen to use to do it. And so it becomes more of a punch list as opposed to what they've done in the past of saying, here are the Lego bricks, and then you figure out how to build it. And I thought that was a very interesting shift for Amazon.
Yeah, I talked to their global leader of PR at a women's lunch. I was gracious enough to be invited to all women's lunch. I'm not a woman.
I hadn't noticed.
People make the mistake all the time.
That's okay, nothing wrong with that.
And I commended her on the Nasdaq story. That was extremely compelling. That this is something that we all can relate to. We have investments, we have our life savings. We understand Nasdaq as a household brand, and Nasdaq talking about the outcomes and then getting to the technology. And she shared with me that was by design. That they work with their customers to gain trust so that they come on stage prepared to talk about the outcomes the story and then the technology later. And Amazon does a great job.
And I think the Nasdaq story, and we saw the CEO of Nasdaq on stage today, I thought she did just a fabulous job of talking about what they have at stake. And Nasdaq has a lot at stake. I mean, when you think about the complexity, it's not just Nasdaq as an exchange. They are an exchange for a lot of other exchanges, right? They are the technology that a lot of these folks kind of ride on. And so there's a lot at stake here for both Nasdaq as well as Amazon. But again, I go back to just the outcomes. They're focused on the outcomes first and foremost. Here's what we're able to do. And then here's the technologies that we were looking at as part of that. I thought that was really interesting.
I love that she was able, and as a CEO, I thought she was a tech executive initially. She just comfortably, and we've talked about this kind of off and on over the past years, like how tech savvy should CEOs be?
Yeah.
And she's one of the most tech savvy CEOs that we've run into. And the ability to just talk about the outcomes and connect it to a technology in a practical way is something I know we've pushed legacy vendors on, especially in the infrastructure.
And we still do.
And we still do. To do about that, to talk about outcomes, but talk about them in a way and connect them in a way that it's unmistakable that they could not have done it without technology from X company versus Y company, which starts to, kind of.
Fascinating.
Right.
Keith, great to see you.
Tim,
thanks
as
for
always,
sharing
great
your
seeing
thoughts.
you.
And we'll leave it right there.